Let's try again. Oh, goodness, that's very loud. Okay, good morning, everybody, members, officers, and any members of the public who, we haven't got anyone attending in person, but there might well be somebody online. So this is a meeting of South Cambridgeshire District Council Cabinet. We normally take decisions by affirmation here, but if there's any disagreement, then obviously we go to a vote, but only those members who are present in the chamber are able to vote. I will ask Cabinet members to speak before non-Cabinet members, and then we'll invite any other members of the public, any other members, if they'd like to speak as well. So can I begin by confirming the meeting's quorum?
Yes, Chair.
Thank you very much. And we've got Councillor Anna Bradnam here representing scrutiny and overview. Okay, righty-ho, so let's just start with item 1, which is apologies for absence. Pippa, please.
Thank you, Chair. We have apologies from Councillor Peter MacDonald.
Thank you very much. Item 2, does anyone have an interest that they need to declare pertaining to today's agenda? No, so no declarations of interest. If anything becomes apparent later on, just raise it then, please. Minutes of the previous meeting. Are there any issues arising from these minutes? No, I think Councillor Milnes is going to second them. I'll propose them. So are members happy to approve the minutes? Anyone wish to vote against? Anyone wish to abstain? So Cabinet therefore agrees the approval of the minutes as a correct record by affirmation. Announcements. So I have one announcement. On Friday we received a best value notice from Lee Rowley MP regarding our trial of the 4-day week model. We are still awaiting further information, further detail about what information and data is going to be requested. And until we know all that, we are not able to make any final decision on how to proceed. Moving on to public questions, there's been we had one request to speak, but actually it came in late, so we now have no public speaking here, no questions. Okay, and moving on to item 6, the update from Scrutiny and Overview Committee, who I believe have done some work on the cost of living support update. Councillor Bradnam, do you want to speak now, or do you want to take it within the bulk of the meeting? Okay.
Thank you, Chair. Leader. Scrutiny and Overview welcomed the report from Northstowe Community, looking at Northstowe Community Facilities and the cost of living update. And we welcomed the work that the officers had done and felt it was so important that the learnings that we've acquired from developing these new communities should be captured and used in future, and hence the recommendations at 2A of this paper. On the cost of living update, one of the other things that we recognised was the enormous amount of work over and above that which you might have expected a district council to do that has been done, and which has enormously benefited our residents. And the questions that we asked as a committee are recorded in the paper at 4A, B and C, and so I just commend that to the Cabinet. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and we'll be discussing that report later on. So thank you for the contribution of the Scrutiny and Overview of highlighted the impact on local businesses, particularly things like cafes, and how we can assess how social value can be assessed, which actually we do assess that, but it'd be interesting to know more about it. So thank you very much. Any questions relating to Scrutiny's work? No? So thank you. So members are asked to note that report. Item 7 is the local impact report from Cambridge Wastewater Treatment Plant Relocation Development Consent Order, and Councillor Milnes is going to introduce this, and I'm happy to second it.
Thank you, Leader. So this is impact report on the wastewater treatment movement application, and in summary, this looks at giving the District Council in principle support to the DCO, but there's a very comprehensive report before us that we've considered previously at Cabinet meetings, and we have two recommendations before us today. One, to agree the report, and the second, to delegate to the Director of Planning and Economic Development the authority to take all associated actions necessary in the interest of the efficient and timely conduct of the Council's compliance with the DCO procedures for this move of the waste treatment plant. So I invite Stephen Kelly to speak and give us some more details of that if we need to. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, as has been outlined, the purpose of this report is to provide the Council's position in respect of the impacts and the benefits of the development, which is the wastewater treatment plant proposed relocation. Our role in that process is not akin to the role as planning authority, where we balance one thing against the other and draw a final determination, but it is to submit this comprehensive report and response to what is called the examining body, examining authority, three planning inspectors effectively appointed by the Secretary of State, who will hear representations not only from South Cambridgeshire District Council, but also the county and city, and third-party representatives, as well as the applicants. That process has begun, and we're working to a statutory timetable that is set, which is why the second recommendation covers quite a range of matters that, on your behalf, I will be obliged to provide comment to at the examining process, and indeed in response to written questions that the examining authority may give to us or other parties. I would just like to cover a couple of points. You will see through the report that there's been a fairly comprehensive assessment undertaken, and whilst there are clear benefits to the scheme, we've identified areas where further information is required, or where the examining authority will need to form a view on the merits of the scheme. I would just draw your attention to one update that I would want to provide through the delegation given to me on page 66, which is to clarify, we talk in depth about the planning policy context, but to draw a conclusion after paragraph 6109, to draw a conclusion in the status of the evidence to the local plan. We cover the area action plan in some depth, and indeed the examining authority have asked the council about that. But to provide some context for the examining authority, I just need to add a little bit more narrative about the local plan, the joint local plan, sorry. But with that, as Councillor Milnes has highlighted, the report is pretty comprehensive. I hope it's clear to you the reasoning and the rationale that we have followed. We are submitting, the City Council is considering the matter on Thursday, and it is a different set of considerations for the city to South Cambridgeshire, because clearly the impact and benefits on the city will be different to the impacts and benefits on South Cambridgeshire. Thank you, Chair.
And sorry, just before you speak, Leader, I'd like to thank the officers involved in preparing this report, which has been, as we've said, very comprehensive. So Changi, Claire, and the other officers that have produced this report for us. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Yes, it's a huge amount of work. Right, are there any questions from Cabinet? Any questions from anyone online? Okay, right. So this is obviously, oh, right, Councillor Bradnam.
Thank you, Chair. I can't remember where it was, but I saw that the officer had addressed public rights of way at various locations around the proposed works. And I also sit on the, I'm a nominee from the County Council to the Conservatives of the CAM, so we've also looked at this paper. And I'm mindful that there are some rights of way on the east side of the river, right near where the outflow is proposed, which have been mentioned briefly. But what I'm concerned about, and I'm asking whether you would be concerned as well about it, is the actual height of the outflow pipe relative to the current level of the bank. In other words, is it your impression that the works will actually expunge the right of way? I know this is something for the County Council to be looking at and addressing. I haven't seen their representation yet, but I wondered if you could just bear that in mind, because there are rights of way along the bank there, and it would break the connection between Horningsea and Fenditon if that right of way was stopped completely. One hopes that after reinstatement, the right of way could be restored across the bank. I'd like to be reassured about that.
Thank you, Stephen.
We're certainly working very closely with the County Council on this. They are, in fact, the waste authority, so would normally be the planning authority for an application of this type. And certainly in terms of rights of way and the transport effects, we're in fact jointly instructing the same barrister in this examination process, and I'll certainly make sure that that concern is reflected in terms of the further questions that we ask of Anglian Water, but also seeking to ensure satisfactory resolution so that it doesn't become an issue, the severance point that you highlight.
Thank you very much.
Right, thank you very much. If there aren't any more questions, we'll go to the recommendations. I'm not going to read them out because they're quite long, on page 19 and page 20. The key thing is that we are delegating to the Director of Planning and Economic Development the authority to take all associated action necessary in the interest of the efficient and timely conduct of the Council's compliance with the DCO procedures. Do members agree with the proposal?
Agreed.
Anyone wish to vote against? Anyone wish to abstain? Thank you. So Cabinet therefore agrees the recommendations by affirmation. Thank you. So item 8 now is the damp, mould and condensation policy, which has been a very topical matter over the last sort of 2 years. So Councillor John Batchelor is going to introduce this.
Thank you very much, Leader. Yes, this is a new policy in order to bring the Council in line with the current government guidance and guidance from the Housing Ombudsman. There's been extensive work on this and consultation with our tenant representatives who have had input. We're ongoing with a stock condition survey over all our stock at the moment, and part of that is to establish if there's any issues with damp. So it's a policy that we're required to have. We have it here, so I'm happy to recommend it. And I'd also like to thank Julie Fletcher and her team who have put a lot of work into this policy. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, they're a very hard-working team. Councillor Henry Batchelor, I think you're going to second it. Do you want to speak on the item?
Yeah, please, just a few words if that's okay. So, yeah, happy to second. You may recall recently we updated our policy around damp and mould in the private rented sector, which does fall within my portfolio. So, yeah, more than happy to support the Housing Department in getting the policy up to standard within our own stock. So, yeah, it's a sensible move, and yeah, as Councillor John Batchelor said, well done to all the officers for getting us to this point.
Thank you very much indeed. Right, are there any questions from Cabinet on this? No, any questions from anybody else? No, Councillor Bradnam?
Thank you, Chair. Leader, sorry. I'm really pleased to hear from Councillor Henry Batchelor that we've also updated our policy with regard to the private rented sector, because we did have a property on our books at South Cambs which was very dampened. It was extremely difficult to work on it. We've, after some time, managed to move the tenant. But when I asked about that property, I was advised that that property had been sold because we didn't want it to be our property. But then I thought, well, somebody's going to rent it. So I'm actually really pleased that we've got a policy regarding the private rented sector as well. And I'd be interested to see that. If anybody could send me a link to it, I'd really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. I mean, I think, was it just the last Cabinet meeting where we approved that, Councillor Batchelor?
It was either the last one or the one previous, so it's certainly one of the last two, but I can send it to Councillor Bradnam, that's no issue.
Thank you. Yes, it was very recently. Okay. Right, are there any questions from anyone else on this? No? Okay, so we'll move to the recommendation, which is on page 157, which is that we approve the draft policy, and we give Councillor John Batchelor delegation for any sort of minor amendments and so on to it. So, do members agree with the proposal?
Agree.
Thank you. Anyone wish to vote against? Anyone wish to abstain? So Cabinet therefore agrees the proposals by affirmation. And continuing on housing themes, item 9 is the Council Tenants Disabled Adaptations Policy. And Councillor John Batchelor again.
Right, thank you very much, Leader. This is an update on policy in order to bring us in line with the current Social Housing Regulation Act and a recent Ombudsman determination which required us to update our policy. So this is the updated policy. I'm pleased to move the recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Mills, I think you're seconding. Do you want to say anything?
No, it's another good piece of work from the housing team, and happy to support in recommendation.
Thank you. Any questions from members of Cabinet? Any questions from anybody else? Councillor Williams?
Thank you, Leader. Just a question about how this can be communicated. I say this because I had a resident who suffered a stroke and is in a council property, and his family got in touch with myself to try and get help to do some adaptations. The information had been given directly to the tenant, but obviously in that situation wasn't able to have the capacity to deal with things himself. And I'm just wondering, what are we doing to make sure that if people need adaptations, we're sort of advertising it, because it is an important part of what the council does.
Thank you very much. Councillor Batchelor, would you like to pick that up?
Well, yeah, the disabled adaptation policy is there. It's on our website. You would go through the normal process, and there is a process clearly there for everybody to do. If there's an ongoing issue with Councillor Williams' constituent, I'll be happy to hear about it and progress matters.
Thank you. But does Julie Fletcher, do you want to add anything into that, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just to add to that, yes, we have got that on our website, but we will be reviewing the website following the approval of the policy. But also to say we will do some communications out to our tenants now that the policy's been approved, or once it's approved, through our newsletter. But we also work very closely with the social care team. So in that instance, I would have thought, you know, they would have helped with that referral. So I'm a bit surprised that that wasn't sort of the lead in, but we do certainly work very closely with social care.
Thank you, and I think this is very often where local members step in, as you've obviously done, in order just to facilitate things if people aren't aware. So thank you very much indeed. Okay, so if there's no more questions, the recommendation is on page 184. Hang on, Is it on 184? No, it's not. It's on 183. Thank you. Recommended that Cabinet approve the draft Council Tenant Disabled Adaptations Policy at Appendix A, and that the lead member for Housing is given delegated authority to improve any minor amendments, etc. So, do members agree with the proposal? Anyone wish to vote against? Anyone wish to abstain? So Cabinet therefore agrees the proposal by affirmation. And moving on to some more good news work, is the cost of living support update. And Councillor Bill Handley is going to introduce this, and Councillor John Williams is going to second it. So, Councillor Handley.
Yes, thank you, Leader. This report provides an update on the cost of living schemes that we're currently running. That was undertaken by the Council in last winter, and also a second phase, the ongoing work coming into this coming winter. You'll recall that Council declared a cost of living crisis at its meeting in September 2022, and after this, Cabinet agreed a package of support based on heating and health, such as warm hubs and low-cost methods of heating and cooking at home. The schemes had the financial support of the Integrated Care Board, and we're very grateful to them for doing so. The first phase of the project was considered a great success, and as I say, we've moved into a second phase, which now focuses on creating self-sustaining projects, which will hopefully continue well into the future. The evolution of the warm hubs into community hubs. We've been working with Cambridgeshire Acre, and again funded by the Integrated Care Board. These are spaces where people can socialise in a warm and comfortable environment, and also get information and advice to help them through difficult times. There are currently 13 of these operating, and we do have funding to support another 7. We can support up to 20. So we'll be talking with people who might wish to join the scheme, join the system. We've been providing again energy-saving devices. 500 electric blankets or throws are going to be provided to residents who are receiving certain benefits and who have long-term health and health conditions or disabilities. And we're also raising awareness of the support that's available through the hubs, using roadshows, cost of living talks, and a communication campaign which we're going to run until Christmas with a main focus on council tax support that's available. Officers are also working with food banks across the district to create a sustainable food network to share ideas and experiences. One of the advantages is that they can communicate with each other to minimise the chances of any food going to waste. If one hub has a surplus, they can help other food hubs. And it's interesting that they too now intend to provide help and advice to residents at the food hubs. So again, it's making sure people know what help is available to them. Finally, on food, we've been working with the charity Hope CIC to set up a mobile food hub scheme, and that started back in June and has been visiting 5 locations each week, and we hope to add more to that list, but that's also been very well received. Of course, there will be some people who can't travel to food banks or mobile hubs, and for those people we are providing food parcels which contain a week's worth of food to people who are vulnerable and for emergencies. Leader, I'm going to leave it there. It's a huge piece of work. It's a comprehensive report, and I would draw Cabinet's attention to ask them to note it, and particularly the 2 appendices, A and B, which give more detail of what we're actually doing. I'd like to end by saying that I'm really proud of the work that we're doing to help residents, and I was really happy to present the work to the Scrutiny and Overview Committee, as Councillor Bradnam mentioned earlier, and I was delighted with the reception that it received there, that I received there. Finally, I'd like to thank the officers who are involved in all of this, especially to Chris Richards, who's in the room today, who's central to all of it and who prepared this comprehensive report. Thank you to everybody.
Thank you very much indeed. Councillor Williams, do you want to add anything?
Thank you, Leader. I'd just like to focus on a couple of things in the report. First of all, that it's very important that residents are able to access their benefits. The research suggests that only 25% of benefits are actually claimed by people. And one of the aims of this is to try and ensure that people are aware of the benefits that they are entitled to. And certainly we have a dedicated page on our website to that. And we also have money maximisation officers that can also help residents ensure that they are getting all the benefits that they are entitled to. The other thing that I want to highlight is the role of the community chest grant scheme in this. This is an opportunity for communities to help us with this cost of living programme, and £20,000 has been set aside from the community chest grant scheme for projects that help cost of living, help us tackle the cost of living crisis. And again, I would, if a community group wants to get support from this council in work that they are doing, then please again go to the council's website, look at the community chest grant funding scheme, and there you can find an application to apply for a grant from this council to help you in your work to help us with the cost of living crisis. So a couple of things there that I think I wanted to highlight. But I'm very pleased to be able to second this. I think the officers have done a tremendous amount of work. Thank you for Chris and the whole community team that have put their hearts and minds to this. And like Bill, I'm very proud of what we're doing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I think, I think some of this has evolved out of the work we did during the pandemic. So it's lovely to have something positive and a sort of lasting legacy. This work was really well received by the corporate peer team, review team we had in last week. I know for a fact that they've gone back to their councils and they've done a sort of brain dump of what we're doing here, because actually there was lots of stuff which actually they wanted to implement in their own councils. So I share your pride in this, Councillor Handley. I think it shows an incredible responsiveness to problems which continue to emerge, our residents are facing. I think it's a really creative approach, and I think it's demonstrating extraordinary value for money, and the social impact of it is significant. And even the little things about how much money an electric throw saves you. And I know the Chief Executive had a lovely little letter from a resident the other day, just saying, how lovely it was to sit wrapped up in this nice, cosy throw. Speaking as somebody who sits in a kitchen working with a hot water bottle up my jumper and my feet on another hot water bottle, but I think I'm going to have to invest in something a bit more high-tech. So yeah, fantastic work. So are there any questions from members of Cabinet? No? Councillor Bradnam?
Thank you. I've said in my earlier response how much the Scrutiny and Overview Committee recommended this report and the good work that it identifies and summarises. And I just wanted to say that at the Scrutiny and Overview Committee, I did point out that there is also a warm hub in Milton that is evolving into a community hub. It's also identified in the Appendix B report and identified on the map. So I was just a little bit miffed that it wasn't mentioned in the report, but only because I did mention it at Scrutiny and Overview. And it is one of the hubs that is continuing. Thanks. That's on in your paragraph 12 when it says 13 hubs, and I'm thinking there are 14.
Thanks, Councillor Bradnam. Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Leader. And I think it's fair to say that all members of the council appreciate the efforts gone to from officers and the administration on the cost of living. It's something that we don't always agree, but on this one we have. Just a few things to go through, I recognise that there's been online donations, which is a lovely thing that it shows that people appreciate what's happening as well, but just how we'll be accounting for that and how that's dealt with. The other thing is that obviously we know that because we're so oil dependent, particularly in wards like my own, that fuel poverty is a difficulty. And I'm just wondering whether there is something through upgrading, sort of going to air source heat pumps and things like that, how the programme of work, does that for the housing tenants from our council houses, how is that sort of interlinking? Are we prioritising people on oil, for example, which is more expensive? And just a plea that it's great work on helping people keep warm, reducing their electricity bills, but one thing that probably doesn't get talked about enough is period poverty. And if on the next phase that could be reflected in the work that the council does to trying to support people with that, because not everybody at the moment, you know, is in a good position financially.
Thank you very, very much. On your second point about off-grid rural communities, I think the HUG2 funding is specifically for retrofit into property which is using bottle gas or oil, isn't it? Do you want to come in, Peter, on that one? No.
Yeah, so
Where were you looking at? Sorry.
I was looking behind you, John,
Right.
but when you were busy. So for all council properties, as was laid out in our asset management strategy, we're going through a process. Whereas in the early days, what we're doing is improving the insulation to properties, and that will be backed up by information and stock condition survey, which Councillor Batchelor referred to earlier. And once we are have evidenced to show that the insulation is good enough to move to air source heat pumps, then we'll come up with that, the second part of the plan. But it makes total logical sense that properties that are currently reliant on more expensive parts of forms of heating are prioritised. But it will be ineffective unless we impact on the insulation first.
Thank you. And if I could bring Chris in to address how we account for donations, but also on Councillor Williams' last point about period poverty and other sort of more hidden types of poverty which are becoming more prevalent.
Yeah, so on the first point on the donations, we received over £2,000, and the money that we received was allowed us to expand our offer. So it allowed us to offer the electric blankets and slow cookers to more people than we would have been able to otherwise. And on the second point on period poverty, we've been working with some officers in Waste Team who are providing some reusable menstrual products, and we've been working to target these and hand these out in the areas that we have identified as most in need.
Councillor Williams.
Thank you, and I appreciate that was a great explanation as to how the money was spent. I was thinking more of how it's actually processed. Does it come into the council's bank account and then spent? I'm just thinking of when external audits, come through this, just how are we accounting for it? And appreciate that there's work being done on period poverty.
Thank you. Yes, yeah, okay, I'm just waiting for our finance officer to deal with that one.
Yeah, so when the money comes in, it'll obviously come into our bank account, and the reference that's provided will enable us to put the income against the cost of living code so that we know that that's what it relates to.
Okay, so it's easily identifiable,
yeah,
ring fenced,
yeah.
And yeah.
All income that comes in, we make sure that it goes to the right place.
Yeah. Okay, and very attributable to what it's delivered. Okay, all right, happy. Okay, jolly good. Any more questions? No. Okay, so The recommendation is set out in page 205, which is just that we note the reports and appendices. Thank you very much to all of the team who've done this outstanding bit of work, which is is obviously just going to keep on developing. It's not a task and finish. The problems continue and the responses have to continue. So do members agree with the proposal?
Agreed.
Anyone voting against? Anyone abstaining? So Cabinet therefore agrees the proposals by affirmation. Thank you very much indeed. And item 11 is the Provisional General Fund Revenue and Capital Outturn. And Councillor John Williams is going to lead on this. I will second it. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader. Well, a very good outturn. The actual outturn was better than the outturn that we were forecasting, and it's obviously better than the original budget, in that we ended up with a surplus, and that most of that was down to increasing taxations income, but also underspend on pensions. So a very good satisfactory outcome, and it's meant that we can transfer 3 million across into the general fund, bringing the total general fund to 18 million, and that actually puts us in a very good sound financial position going forward. So congratulations to the finance team, but also to the whole of the council for maintaining pretty close to the budget that we set, but actually, as I say, we were able to increase our income from taxation and grants to give us that bit of extra money that we weren't expecting, that we've been able to transfer into reserves. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any comments from members of Cabinet? Any comments from anyone else? Councillor Williams?
Probably a plea on the ICT, because I notice there's been a delay in those projects. I think a lot of us suffer from IT problems quite regularly and would appreciate efforts being stepped up to spend that money quite quickly would be appreciated.
I'm going to ask Councillor Milnes just to make a comment, because he's been working very hard on this.
Well, we've been reviewing on a continuous basis the ICT support, and actually you'll remember well when we first came into administration, the ICT performance was perhaps not what we would expect, and it's improved significantly since then, and that. Say again.
Ta-da!
Oh, sorry. Yes. Chair's charity. Sorry. I was mid-flow, Councillor Williams. I'm sorry. Anyway, it's a work in progress, and the performance of the ICT service is improving, but we clearly need to continue that move in the right direction. There are still obvious examples where the performance is not what we'd expect. It's in hand.
Okay, do you want to come back?
Just a particular plea on emails, please, as always.
Noted.
Okay, thank you. Right, so moving on. So it was very gratifying to get such a clean bill of health from the corporate peer review on our finances last week. I don't imagine there's many local authorities, who can say what we can say. That we're financially sound, we have healthy reserves, and we have very little exposure to risk from our investment. So it was we knew that, but it was very nice to have a group of peers come and affirm it in the clearest terms to us. So again, my thanks added to Councillor Williams' thanks to all the finance team who've moved us forward into this enviable position. So The recommendations are quite long, so I'm not going to read them. On page 285 and 286. Do members agree with proposals?
Agreed.
Anyone wish to vote against? Anyone wish to abstain? The Cabinet therefore agrees the proposals by affirmation. So continuing on finance, item 10 is the provisional housing revenue account outturn. And Councillor John Williams is going to introduce it and Councillor John Batchelor is going to second it. Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Leader. As you can see, the outturn position, there was an underspend in the revenue position, and there was also a decrease in the housing revenue account balances. As to the capital programme that we did need to carry forward, we have needed to carry forward 3 million due to slippage to the house building programme, but I'll let Councillor Batchelor explain that in more detail.
Thank you very much. Councillor Batchelor.
Thank you very much, Leader. Yes, the carry forward is a symptom of the times, I'm afraid, in that builders have slowed up. This is specifically about Northstowe, where the expectations on timings have not been fully met. This doesn't mean that housing has disappeared or anything. It's just going to come back in at a later date than was originally planned. Other than that, I think the whole account is very satisfactory, and given a budget outturn which is within less than 1% of the original budget, given the times that we have, I think it was a jolly good outturn, and well done to all those involved. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions from Cabinet? Any questions from anyone else? Councillor Bradnam.
Thank you, Leader. I just wanted to say, and it relates to these two papers, that I just wanted to thank the Council for being courageous, because it's not been easy at all, obviously, and yet in these difficult times we've managed to manage our money and actually provide facilities where we needed to, for example at Northstowe, and people have taken steps to spend big amounts of money to provide necessary community facilities when we were left in a very difficult position by the developer and by the previous agreement. So I just wanted to say thank you to our Cabinet for making these courageous decisions, because it's public money, we have to be accountable for it, and I just wanted to say thank you.
It's much appreciated, Councillor Bradnam. Thank you very much indeed. But thanks to, obviously, to our officers as well, who do all the hard work. Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Leader. Just in relation to comments on Northstowe, just wondering, sort of, we said it slowed up, but have we got a rough scale of the delay and how many units it affects, please?
Well, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, you know, some developers, it hasn't slowed down. It's ground to a halt in some places. I think one of the developers there has stopped work. But yeah, Peter, would you like to add some, you know, stuff way outside our control, unfortunately?
I don't have the figures to hand. Let's be clear. There's been delays on a lot of developments, and the specific underspend this year, as covered in paragraph 16, is to do with the scheme at New Road Over and Rampton Road in Cottenham, where we're taking 106 properties from the developer, but the developer's delivering the rest of the scheme to the market. As market demand has fallen, therefore the developer has slowed down their delivery. What we can do outside this meeting is to produce a schedule of what we were expecting at this time and what's actually coming through and the numbers of properties in each development.
Yes, and I chair what was the housing committee at the combined authority. And again, we've seen it. It's been a real struggle to get some of those final houses out and delivered, because there's been such market pressures. Okay, if there's no more questions, then right. So the recommendations are quite a lot of them set out at 301. Do members agree with the proposal?
Agreed.
Anyone wish to vote against? Anyone wish to abstain? So Cabinet therefore agrees the proposals by affirmation. And moving on to the final finance item, and that's the General Fund Medium-Term Financial Strategy. It's that time of year again. Councillor Williams, and I think Councillor Milnes is going to second it, isn't he? Sorry?
Yeah, that's fine.
Was that what I can't?
I'll second that.
All right, jolly good. That's what we'll go with that. Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Leader. As you know, we review the mid-term financial strategy, which covers the financial position of the council, trying to forecast financial position of the council for the next 5 years, and we do this every 6 months. And obviously, it's there to deliver the business plan of the council. And so obviously, if the business plan is amended or adapted or changed in any way, then obviously MTFS is changed to deliver it. You'll see that the real problem with local government as a whole is that we have to rely on crystal balls the whole time to see what's going to happen, not just in 5 years' time, but what's going to happen the next year. And one of the interesting changes that happened fairly recently was the fact that the fair funding review, which has we've been threatened with now ever since we took control of this council in 2018. It's been pushed back every year. It's been pushed back again. But nevertheless, we have to make allowance for the fact that we could face a fair funding review. And it's even more uncertain, of course, because there will be a general election in next year, and we will have a change of government. So whether we will have a fair funding review, and if we do, if it will be the one that we're expecting, who knows? So I have to say that although it looks like we have clawed back some overspend, and initially 6 months ago we were saying that we would at the end of the we would be looking for something like 6.5 million deficit for the 5 years. We've clawed that back to just under 5.5 million. To be honest with you, we really don't know. Beyond 25-26, no one really knows what is going to happen to local government finance. And so, we have to. It's important that we do this. We need to look ahead 5 years, but I have to say, actually, what is going to happen in 5 years' time, no one can predict at the moment because of the fact that we don't have any certainty from national government. So I'm very pleased that we've clawed it back to 5.5 now, but I have to say that is very much an estimate as to what might happen. But nevertheless, we always look at the worst situation, so we're very, with a small c, conservative in going forward in what we're likely to get in terms of income. So, as I say, at the moment, we are forecasting that the end of the 5-year period would have a deficit of around just over 5 million, and in total for the 5 years, a deficit of 5.4, which we must work to reduce, either through improvements in productivity or increases in income. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Councillor Milnes.
Yes, thank you. I'd just like to reinforce what Councillor Williams has just reported in terms of the levels of uncertainty that we have to deal with in this regard, which makes these forecasts really quite awkward. And there's a high difference between on those levels of the sensitivity analysis in this regard, and it's an awful lot of work that's well done for us. You know, the transformation program that we have to reduce costs is moving on, and I think one of the things that the corporate PIT review reference was the minimum revenue provision, but largely we're not impacted, I think, by that. Councillor Williams, is your report. So I'm happy to second the report. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much indeed. Yes. So you know, in the 16 years I've been being a councillor, it's been a guessing game. And I think it's not just now the case of we don't know what's going to happen to local government finance over the next few years. I don't think we know what's going to happen to local government. So anyway, thank you very much indeed. This is a robust piece of work. Thank you to all the officers involved. Cabinet, any questions from you? No? Anybody else in the room? No? No? Okay, thank you very much. So the recommendations are set out at 309, page 309. Do members agree with the proposals?
Agreed.
Anyone wish to vote against? Anyone wish to abstain? Thank you. So Cabinet therefore agrees with the proposals by affirmation. And moving on to item 14, which was the motion that was referred from Council. Thank you. Just righty-ho. So the motion is set out on page 339. I'm sure you're all familiar with it. So this was referred to Cabinet from full Council. It's because decisions about the 4-day week trial, because it is a trial, have been an executive function, and the decision making has rested with Cabinet, and that's why it's come back to Cabinet. We agreed quite some time ago that the monitoring of this trial would be through the Employment Committee, and I think they've got a meeting this week, so the papers are available through that. But if and when it comes to a final decision, it will be down to full Council to make that decision about whether to make a 4-day week permanent, should we get to that point. So I'm therefore proposing that Cabinet note the motion, and I think Councillor John Williams is going to second that. But are there any comments from Cabinet? No, from anybody else? Councillor Williams?
What guarantees do the rest of full Council have that the Cabinet won't just simply extend the trial?
I can't say. I mean, it will depend. It will depend on how the trial goes. Whether Cabinet makes a judgment as to whether it needs to be extended or not. So I can't give that guarantee. It depends how the trial goes and whether we deem it necessary to extend it.
And whether it continues.
And whether we actually put a proposal to full Council that a 4-day week working model be adopted, but I can't say that at this moment in time. Yeah.
And is there any chance that you'll be stopping the trial? And if you do so, will you take that decision in public?
So we are obviously constantly reviewing the trial. I wait to see what comes out of the Employment and Staffing Committee. I've said all along that should there be a downturn in performance that appears to result from the trial, that we will stop the trial. That's always been the case from day one. So that we've never said this trial will just continue to its conclusion come hell or high water. It's always depended on the constant monitoring which goes on a weekly basis. Okay, Councillor Bradman.
Thank you, Leader. As a member of Employment and Staffing, I've looked at the papers, and the report looks very positive. And so I look forward to the discussion at employment and staffing. The only thing I wanted to ask was, are you confident that we have sufficient KPIs to monitor all aspects of work for the purposes of ensuring that one of the undertakings was that the service would be no worse. And my understanding is the KPIs are sufficient, but I just wondered if there's anything that people are thinking that they might wish to add.
So, if you'll forgive me, I think that's a question for employment and staffing. The item here is around the motion, so I'd like to keep us on track to talk about the motion. But I think that will be a very interesting question for you to put to the Employment and Staffing Committee meeting, and I look forward to hearing the outcome of it. Okay, so moving on, the proposal is that we note the motion that's now come to Cabinet. Do people agree with the proposal?
Agree.
Anyone wish to vote against? Anyone wish to abstain? So Cabinet therefore agrees the proposal by affirmation. Thank you very much indeed. And that was seconded by Councillor Williams. I'm sorry, I didn't invite you to speak. Is that all right? I'm sorry. Okay, so we're now coming to the point in the meeting where we need to discuss some stuff that's commercially sensitive. So we need to consider whether to exclude the press and public. This is because the final three items contain information which is commercially sensitive. Members of the public are advised that if Cabinet agrees to exclude the press and public, the video stream will end. I therefore propose that the press and public be excluded from the meeting during consideration of the remaining items of business in accordance with section 100A brackets 4 of the Local Government Act 1972 on the grounds that, if present, there would be a disclosure to them of exempt information as defined in paragraph 3 of part 1 of schedule 12A of the Act brackets as amended. Is that seconded?
I second that.
Thank you. Do members agree with the proposal? Anyone wish to vote against? Anyone wish to abstain? So Cabinet therefore agrees the proposals by affirmation. So for members of the public watching the webcast, the video stream will end now. Thank you ever so much for joining us at today's meeting. And the next meeting of Cabinet is scheduled to take place on Thursday the 5th of December at 10 o'clock. Almost Christmas, oh joy.